The galaxy of Vareth had known peace for centuries. Hundreds of alien races lived under the shining protection of the Vareth Alliance, a council that believed diplomacy and unity could solve every problem. They built great cities in the stars, floating stations around suns and vast crystal towers that touched the clouds. But peace never lasts forever. From the dark edge of the galaxy came a new enemy, the Karth Dominion. They were not a single race, but a swarm of machines and creatures who believed in conquest. The Karth did not speak or negotiate. They simply arrived, demanded surrender, and destroyed all who refused. The Dominion's ships were shaped like blades, black and burning with red energy. When they entered a system, they cut through every defense like paper. Planets that once shone with light were left in silence and ash. Now, they had reached Vareth Prime, the capital world of the Alliance. In the main command tower, Admiral Threnveller stood before the wide holographic display. He was tall and silver-skinned, with calm eyes that once brought comfort to his people. Now, they only showed exhaustion. The display showed red lines everywhere. The Karth fleet had broken through every defense ring. A young officer turned from her console, her voice shaking. "Admiral, the outer orbit defense grid is gone. We've lost contact with Fleet 7. Thren closed his eyes for a moment. He could hear the quiet hum of the room, the low breathing of frightened officers. He wanted to show strength, but inside he felt helpless. "Pull all remaining ships to the inner line," he ordered softly. "Protect the evacuation transports at all costs." "Yes, Admiral," the officer replied, though her voice cracked. Through the window behind him, Thren could see the night sky burning. Thousands of lights flashed, ships exploding, fighters falling, escape pods bursting into flame. It looked like the end of the world. Hours passed. The Karth ships moved. Closer, their gravity cannons striking the surface of Vareth Prime. Entire cities vanished in seconds. The Alliance fleet fought bravely but was outnumbered 20-1. In the Grand Council chamber below the tower, the leaders of different races argued. "This is hopeless," shouted one. "We must surrender," cried another. "No," said a third. "The Karth never accept surrender. They destroy all." Admiral Thren entered the chamber, his face calm despite the chaos. "We cannot win this battle," he said, "but we can survive. We must find a way to fight differently." The council members turned to him. "What do you suggest?" one of them asked bitterly. "We have tried everything. Ships, shields, strategies. The Karth are unstoppable." Thren hesitated. He knew how strange it would sound. "There is one last option," he said quietly. "A story from long ago, about a species that once fought against impossible odds, and won." The room fell silent. "Humans," he said. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many of the council had heard of them, small, primitive beings from a forgotten blue world near the edge of the galaxy. They were not members of the Alliance. They had no great technology, no vast armies. But stories said they were fierce, unpredictable, and brave beyond reason. "Humans?" One counselor laughed. "They are myths, animals who destroy their own planet. How can they help us?" Thren met his gaze. "Because they understand something we have forgotten, how to fight when hope is gone." An old scientist spoke up. "I have studied the human archives. They survived endless wars, disasters, and struggles. They adapt faster than any species. Perhaps Admiral Thren is right." The council argued for hours, their voices rising and falling like waves. But as explosions shook the city and the sky turned red, they finally agreed. "Send the signal," said the High Chancellor at last. "Find the human." In the dark space above Vareth Prime, one small ship escaped the burning world. It carried only 3 passengers, envoy Lyra, pilot Mech, and translator Dro. Their mission, to locate Earth and ask for help. The journey would take weeks through jump space. The Karth might track them. Failure meant extinction. Inside the ship, Lyra sat quietly, watching the stars stretch into lines. "Do you really think one human can save us?" she asked. Mech, the pilot, shook his head. "I don't know, but I've seen what they can do in the old videos. They fight even when logic says they should die. Translator Dro looked nervous. I hope they're as noble as the legends say, because if they are not, we are bringing our doom to them. The ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a world on fire. Back on Vareth Prime, Admiral Thren remained in the command tower, watching the last defense ships fall. His communications officer reported that the signal to Earth had been sent successfully. Good, Thren said softly. Now we wait. Outside, the ground trembled. The Karth were landing on the planet's surface. Massive dropships filled the sky like black rain. Thren turned to his officers. Evacuate who you can, he ordered. Get them underground. I'll hold the tower. But sir, that's an order. The young officers saluted and ran. Thren stood alone in the command room, staring at the advancing enemy on the display. He could hear the deep mechanical roar of the Karth machines moving closer. He whispered to himself, Human, whoever you are, I hope you are real. Far across the galaxy, the small Vareth envoy ship reached the blue planet. Earth looked calm and beautiful from orbit. White clouds, blue oceans, green continents. The aliens expected a mighty defense grid or warships around the world. Instead, they saw nothing. Just satellites, quiet stations, and the simple hum of a peaceful world. They landed on an open field outside a human military base in the northern hemisphere. Soldiers surrounded the ship, weapons raised, but no one fired. Lyra stepped out first, holding a translator device. Her voice shook slightly as she spoke. We come in peace, we seek help. The galaxy burns. The soldiers looked confused until one man stepped forward. Captain Aaron Holt, a retired human commander who happened to be visiting the base that day. He had gray at his temples, sharp eyes, and the calm look of someone who had seen too many wars. He listened quietly as the aliens explained everything. The invasion, the Dominion, the fall of Vareth Prime. When they finished, Lyra looked at him with desperate hope. Will you help us? She asked. Aaron stood silent for a long time. Then he said slowly, You've been fighting like machines. You forgot what makes war worth fighting. Lyra frowned. What do you mean? Aaron looked up at the sky, as if seeing distant stars. It's not the ships or weapons that win wars. It's the will to stand when everything falls apart. If you really want to win, then you need to remember how to fight like humans. Back on Vareth Prime, the Karth Dominion claimed victory. They raised their dark banners over the burning cities and broadcast their message across the stars. The Vareth Alliance has fallen. The galaxy belongs to the Dominion. But in the ashes of defeat, one signal kept traveling through the dark, a message to a small blue planet. And somewhere on Earth, a human had just agreed to answer it. The news of the Karth Dominion's victory over Vareth Prime spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Worlds that once stood tall under the Vareth Alliance flag now lived in fear. Entire colonies surrendered before even seeing the enemy. The Dominion's shadow stretched over everything. But far from the chaos, on a quiet blue planet called Earth, one man began to prepare for a fight the galaxy had already given up on. Captain Aaron Holt was not a young man anymore. He had served in Earth's military for over 2 decades. He had fought in distant wars that most people preferred to forget. After retirement, he lived quietly in the mountains, away from cities and noise. But when the alien envoys from the Vareth Alliance landed and told him their story, something inside him woke again. He did not say yes immediately. For 2 days he thought in silence. He looked up at the stars at night and remembered the faces of soldiers he had lost, the times he had been told that a battle was hopeless, and how humans had still fought until the end. On the 3rd day, he went to the landing site and found Envoy Lyra, pilot Mech, and translator Dro waiting. I'll come, Aaron said simply. But if I do this, you follow my orders exactly. Lyra's eyes widened. You mean, you will help us? Aaron nodded. I'll try. But remember, humans don't fight for glory. We fight to protect what's left. Their ship, the Vareth Light, left Earth within the hour. As it rose through the sky, Aaron looked down at the blue planet fading behind them. He wondered if he would ever see it again. The journey through jump space was long and strange. Bright colors stretched across the windows like rivers of light. The Vareth crew often glanced at Aaron with curiosity. To them, he was an unknown creature, small, fragile-looking, and yet his presence filled the ship with quiet strength. During the trip, Aaron spent his time studying. Lyra showed him data on the Karth Dominion, their ships, weapons, and tactics. Aaron frowned at every report. They fight with patterns, he said. Same formation, same timing, predictable, that's their weakness. But they have too many ships, Lyra replied. We cannot match their numbers. Aaron gave a half smile. Then we make them fight where numbers don't matter. When the Vareth light finally reached the hidden base of the remaining Alliance fleet, everyone stared in disbelief. The ships that once filled the stars were reduced to a handful. Damaged cruisers, old fighters and repair stations floating in silence. The soldiers looked tired, their faces pale and hopeless. As Aaron stepped out of the ship, the crowd whispered, "Is that the human? He's so small." He can't be serious. Admiral Threnveller came forward, his uniform torn but his posture straight. He saluted Aaron in the human way, having studied Earth customs. "Captain Holt," Thren said, his voice heavy. "Welcome to what is left of the Vareth Alliance." Aaron looked around the ruined station and simply said, "Then let's start rebuilding." Over the next few days, Aaron observed everything, the soldiers' training, the ship's condition, the command systems. He said little at first, but when he spoke, everyone listened. "You fight like machines," he told them during the first briefing. "Order, precision, logic meant all good things. But war isn't logical. The enemy expects you to act by rules. So we'll stop following them." The officers exchanged uneasy looks. "You mean chaos?" one asked. Aaron nodded. "Controlled chaos. We'll make the Dominion think we're weak, scattered, confused, and then we strike where they least expect it." He divided the troops into small strike teams. Instead of sending full fleets, he trained them to attack with speed, stealth, and surprise. He taught them human tactics, ambushes, deception, and the art of misdirection. He made them paint their ships black to hide in shadows. He changed communication codes every few hours. He even told pilots to fly in irregular patterns. "Because predictable paths get you killed," he said. At first, the soldiers thought he was reckless, but slowly they began to see results. Training exercises that used to end in disaster now ended in victory. For the first time in months, laughter returned to the halls of the fleet. Lyra watched Aaron closely. She had seen many commanders before, but none like him. He didn't shout or threaten. He spoke quietly, yet everyone listened. One evening, she approached him while he was checking flight plans. "You don't seem afraid," she said. Aaron didn't look up. "Fear's normal. It's what keeps you alive. The trick is to keep moving even when you're afraid." Lyra smiled faintly. "That is very human." Aaron looked at her then. "Maybe, but it's also what your people need to remember. You forgot how to be unpredictable." Days later, the Dominion fleet entered a nearby system, attacking one of the last Vareth colonies. Admiral Thren wanted to retreat, but Aaron said, "No. This is where we start fighting back." He outlined his plan, one so strange that the officers thought he was joking. "Empty ships?" one asked. "Yes," Aaron replied. "We'll send a group of unarmed transports broadcasting distress signals. The Dominion will think they're evacuation ships. When they move in to destroy them, our real fleet will strike from behind." "It's risky," Thren said. Aaron smiled. "So is losing." The plan began. The empty transports floated helplessly in space near the colony. When the Dominion fleet arrived, they fired immediately, destroying the decoys and revealing their position. From behind a nearby moon, Aaron's fleet appeared like ghosts. They launched electromagnetic torpedoes that disabled the Dominion's guidance systems. Fighters swooped in, hitting engines and communication hubs before vanishing into asteroid fields. The Karth ships tried to regroup, but their scanners showed false signals, hundreds of ghost ships created by Aaron's tricks. Confused and trapped, they began to fire on their own allies. In less than an hour, the unstoppable Dominion lost half its fleet. The rest retreated into the void. The Vareth soldiers stood in silence for a moment, unable to believe what they had just done. Then cheers filled every channel. For the first time since the war began, they had won. In the command room, Admiral Thren looked at Aaron with awe. "Captain Holt," he said, "how did you know it would work?" Aaron shrugged. "I didn't, but I knew they were too confident." They think like machines. We think like humans, we adapt. Thren placed a hand over his chest, the Vareth sign of deep respect. You have given us hope, Captain. Something we had forgotten. Aaron looked out at the stars. Hope's good, he said softly. But don't depend on it too much. The Dominion will learn from this. Next time, they'll be ready. That night, the fleet celebrated quietly. Lyra approached Aaron again. Your people. You fight differently, she said. You risk everything without knowing the outcome. Aaron nodded. But that's what makes us dangerous. We don't fight to win. We fight because we refuse to lose. Lyra looked thoughtful. Maybe that is what we needed all along. Aaron smiled faintly. Then don't waste it. Tomorrow we train again. Far away on a Dominion command ship, the High Warlord Zara watched the battle recordings. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with anger. This human, she said slowly. He turned our order into confusion. He must be found. Her second-in-command bowed. We will locate him, my lady. Zara leaned forward. Do it quickly. If one human can do this much damage, I want to see what else he can do. Before I end him. The room fell silent as the stars outside turned blood red. And so, while the Vareth fleet celebrated their first victory, the Dominion prepared for something far greater, because they had finally learned the name of their new enemy. Human. Part 3. The First Human Strategy. The Vareth Alliance had finally won a single battle after years of defeat. The victory filled their ships with new life. But Admiral Thren and Captain Aaron Holt both knew it was only the beginning. The Karth Dominion would return, stronger and smarter. Their pride had been wounded, and they would not rest until the human who humiliated them was destroyed. Aaron sat in the strategy room of the flagship Valora, staring at the holographic stars floating above the table. Lyra, Thren, and several officers stood around him waiting for his plan. We have one chance, Aaron said. We can't keep running or hiding. The Dominion will soon find our base, so we'll take the fight to them. A murmur ran through the officers. Attack them? One asked in disbelief. But their fleets are 10 times larger. Aaron looked up, his calm eyes steady. Numbers don't decide wars. Decisions do. The Dominion follows patterns. They repeat every move. We'll break those patterns. Thren nodded slowly. You have a plan, then? Aaron tapped the holographic display. A group of red dots appeared, showing the enemy's supply route through 3 systems. They send their fuel convoys through this corridor. Every ship depends on those supplies. We'll strike here, not their main fleet. Why not attack the warships directly? Lyra asked. Because you don't fight strength with strength, Aaron replied. You attack what keeps the strength alive. The room fell silent. The plan sounded risky, but brilliant. 2 days later, the Vareth strike fleet left their hidden base under Aaron's command. 20 ships moved through the stars in silence, their lights dimmed, hulls blackened. Aaron stood on the command deck of the Valora, hands behind his back, watching the stars drift by. Every soldier in the fleet felt the tension. They were going to attack the Dominion, something no one had dared to do since the war began. Lyra walked up beside him. Do you think they'll be ready for us? Aaron smiled faintly. They're always ready for what they expect. That's why we won't do what they expect. When the fleet reached the edge of the Dominion corridor, they found exactly what Aaron had predicted. A long line of supply ships, heavily guarded by destroyers. Thren looked at the display. We can't win this fight head-on. Aaron nodded. We won't. Prepare Phase 1. The Vareth ships began broadcasting fake signals. Each message sounded like desperate cries from other Alliance worlds begging for help. The Dominion guards received the signals and became confused. Multiple distress calls detected, one Dominion commander said. They're attacking other systems. Send half the escort fleet to investigate, ordered another. Half of the Dominion destroyers turned away, leaving the convoy weaker. Aaron watched them go and smiled. Now, Phase 2. Using stealth drives, the Vareth strike ships drifted closer. They fired small magnetic mines that attached silently to the Dominion fuel ships. The enemy did not notice. When Aaron gave the signal, the mines exploded, not to destroy but to blind the sensors. Suddenly, the entire Dominion convoy lost communication. Now, Aaron shouted. The Vareth fleet came out of hiding like ghosts, their engines flaring bright blue. Fighters streaked forward, weaving through the debris. The Dominion tried to respond, but their sensors were jammed, their formation broken. The Vareth ships darted between them like shadows. firing precise bursts at engines and control nodes. Within minutes, the entire convoy was in chaos. Thren's voice echoed across the bridge. "They're retreating. The Dominion is running." Aaron shook his head. "Not yet. Block their escape routes. Make them think we're everywhere." Lyra watched in awe as Aaron turned a small attack into a complete victory. He didn't just win through power, he won through confusion. The Dominion forces finally fled, leaving behind half their supply ships in flames. When the battle ended, cheers filled the Valora. The soldiers hugged one another, some shouting, some crying. It felt like the old days before the fall, but Aaron stood quietly at the viewport watching the burning wreckage drift away. Lyra approached him again. "You don't celebrate," she said softly. Aaron didn't turn. "Because they're learning. Next time it'll be harder." Lyra frowned. "You think they'll come for you?" Aaron nodded slowly. "They will. The Dominion doesn't forgive humiliation." Meanwhile, in the cold black heart of the Karth Dominion, Warlord Zera stood before a massive hologram of the destroyed convoy. Her eyes glowed red with anger. "This human. He fights without logic," she hissed. "He uses deception, chaos, emotion. I want every file, every image, every word about him. Find out how he thinks." A robotic officer bowed. "Yes, Commander Zera." Zera clenched her metallic hand. "He turned my soldiers into fools. But he will not win again. I will study his mind, and then crush it." Back at the Alliance base, word of the victory spread across the surviving colonies. Messages of hope filled the network. Planets that had gone silent began to send signals again. "Perhaps," Thren said to Aaron, "the galaxy will remember what it means to fight." Aaron looked tired but pleased. "Maybe, but hope alone won't save them. We have to turn hope into strength." He began training a new generation of Vareth pilots. They practiced quick strikes, evasive maneuvers, and team tactics based on human combat principles. Aaron watched them from the deck, correcting every move, every mistake. "Think like your enemy," he told them, "but never act like them. They fight for control. You fight for survival. That's what gives you an edge." Weeks passed. The Vareth Alliance grew stronger under Aaron's leadership. Small victories became frequent. Each one boosted morale and spread the legend of the human commander. Stories traveled across the stars. Stories of a small, soft-spoken human who turned the tide of war. Children in the colonies drew pictures of him. Soldiers whispered his name like a promise. But Aaron stayed humble. He refused medals or titles. "Save those for after the war," he said. "If we live that long." Then came the news that changed everything. Lyra rushed into the command room one morning holding a datapad. "Captain Holt," she said breathlessly, "the Dominion is gathering forces in the Zealer system." "It's huge. Over 500 warships." Thren turned to Aaron. "They're coming for us." Aaron nodded. "They've learned from the last battle. They'll expect our tricks this time." "What will you do?" Lyra asked. Aaron's eyes narrowed as he looked at the holographic display. "We'll do something no one expects, not even us." Thren blinked. "What does that mean?" Aaron smiled faintly. "It means we stop running small raids. It's time for a real war." In the following days, he began forming a new plan. He called it Operation Star Veil. The idea was dangerous. Use the energy of collapsing stars to blind the Dominion sensors and lead their fleets into unstable space. Even the slightest mistake could destroy both sides. When he presented the plan, the officers were stunned. "That's madness," one said. "No one can control a dying star." Aaron replied calmly, "Then we'll learn. Because the only thing scarier than impossible is a human who tries anyway." That night, as the fleet prepared for battle, Aaron stood alone in the observation deck. The stars shimmered around him. Lyra joined him quietly. "You don't fear death, do you?" Aaron gave a small smile. "Fear, I feel at every moment. But fear is just a sign that something is worth doing." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "Then maybe that is what makes humans different." Aaron looked back toward the stars where the Dominion fleets waited. "No," he said softly. "It's not fear or courage that makes us different. It's that we never stop trying." As the fleet engines roared to life and the stars blurred into streaks of light, the human-led armada moved into the unknown. The Dominion believed they had learned every human trick. They were wrong. The Dominion fleet waited in the Zealer system, a cluster of dense asteroids and gas clouds, confident that their overwhelming numbers would crush the remaining Vareth forces. 500 warships bristled with weapons, their engines glowing red in the void. Commander Zara paced the command deck of her flagship, her sensors scanning for any sign of the human. "Find him," she ordered. "I will not allow this human to interfere again. He is dangerous beyond reason." Her officers scrambled to comply. The Dominion had studied Aaron Holt's strategies after the last battle, trying to predict his moves. They assumed humans acted on logic like every other species. They were wrong. Meanwhile, aboard the Valora, Captain Aaron Holt stood before the Vareth officers. He had spent days preparing Operation Star Veil, the boldest plan any human or alien had attempted in this war. He outlined the strategy. "The Dominion is confident. They believe they know our tactics. That's why we will make them think they have victory in their hands. We will lure them into the collapsing nebula at the system's edge. Its gravity waves will confuse their sensors. Their ships will fall into traps of their own making." Lyra frowned. "A collapsing nebula? It's unstable. Any mistake and we could lose everything." Aaron's gaze was steady. "That's the point. They think it's a trap for us. In truth, it's a trap for them. The moment they enter, we control the battlefield." Thren looked concerned. "Captain, if this fails—" Aaron shook his head. "It will not fail. But even if it does, we will fight. Humans do not surrender, and neither will the Vareth Alliance." The fleet prepared. Ships were refueled, shields checked, and fighters polished. Aaron walked among the pilots and soldiers, checking each one personally. He gave advice, corrected mistakes, and reminded them, "Remember, the Dominion fears unpredictability. Fly like you think differently, move like they can't follow, and never ever give up." The soldiers, many of them scared and exhausted from years of defeat, felt a strange new confidence. There was something about this human. His calm voice, his unshakable resolve, that made fear seem smaller. As the Valora and the Vareth fleet approached the Zalar system, sensors picked up the massive Dominion armada. The enemy had more than double the Vareth numbers. Red lights flashed across every console. Thren swallowed hard. There's no way to outgun them. Aaron's eyes were calm. "Then we outthink them," he gave the command. "Phase 1, faint retreat." The Vareth ship slowed and turned slightly as if fleeing. The Dominion fleet advanced eagerly, seeing an easy victory. Their gunnery officers laughed at what they believed were weak, retreating enemies. Aaron smiled faintly. "They're falling right into it." The fleet moved closer to the nebula. Gravity waves began to interfere with sensors, causing Dominion ships to misread positions. Aaron's fleet split into small groups, weaving among the asteroids and gas clouds. Suddenly, magnetic mines deployed by Aaron's teams disabled the engines of a small group of Dominion cruisers. In their panic, the cruisers collided with the nebula's debris fields. Explosions lit up space. Zara's command deck was chaos. "Pull back!" she roared. "This is impossible." Aaron's fleet struck again. Fighters darted in like lightning, hitting weapon arrays, communications hubs, and shields. Every movement was unpredictable, guided not by strict rules but by human intuition. "Move left." "No, now right," Aaron shouted over the comms, directing the fleet with a precision that seemed almost instinctive. The Dominion fleet tried to respond but could not. Sensors failed, ships became trapped in the nebula's gravity currents, and some were even sucked toward collapsing star remnants Aaron had calculated precisely. Hours passed. The Vareth fleet, inspired by Aaron's leadership, became nearly unstoppable. Every strike hit its mark. Dominion ships fell like dominoes, unable to understand the strange human tactics. Lyra's voice trembled with excitement. "Captain, they can't fight back." Aaron nodded. "Not because we're stronger. Because we are unpredictable. Remember this. They always plan for what they know, but we do not play by their rules." Thren watched the battle unfold, awestruck. "I have never seen strategy like this," he admitted. "He is teaching us how to fight again." Aaron kept his eyes on the nebula. He knew the real challenge was still ahead, Zara herself. The warlord had stayed behind with a group of the fastest, most deadly ships, waiting to strike at the right moment. As the collapsing nebula shifted, Zara made her move. Her flagship, a towering black vessel with energy spires, launched a wave of missiles at the Valora. Aaron did not panic. "Prepare the counterwave," he said. "We will make her think she has the advantage. Then we strike." The Vareth fleet adjusted, firing defensive flares and decoy drones. The missiles hit nothing, passing harmlessly into the nebula's turbulence. Aaron ordered a daring move. Split into 2 squads. I will draw her into the trap. He piloted a small, fast ship himself, flying directly toward Zera's flagship. Every twist and turn was calculated to confuse the enemy sensors. Zera's ships fired relentlessly, but Aaron's evasive maneuvers made every attack miss by mere meters. Finally, the trap worked. Zera's flagship was pulled into a collapsing energy pocket at the edge of the nebula. Her own ships following her began to struggle with gravitational currents. Aaron's fleet struck as one. Torpedoes and plasma bursts hit the enemy ships from all sides. Systems overloaded. Shields collapsed. Engines exploded. Zera's fury was immense. This human, how is he? Aaron, speaking calmly over the comms, said, You underestimated him. You underestimated us. In minutes, the Dominion flagship was crippled, forced to retreat. The rest of Zera's fleet scattered, their morale broken. After the battle, the Vareth fleet gathered at a safe distance. The nebula's energy waves continued to shimmer like molten fire. The cost had been high. Several Vareth ships were lost, but the victory was absolute. Thren approached Aaron. You have done what no one thought possible. You've not just won a battle, you've changed the course of this war. Aaron shook his head. I didn't win alone. Every pilot, every soldier, every decision counted. Humans don't fight alone, and neither should the Alliance. Remember that? Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. You've given us more than victory. You've given us hope. Aaron looked at the stars and spoke softly. Hope is fragile. But if you act, hope can become unstoppable. Back in the Dominion, Zera seethed. Her plans had failed. Her fleet was scattered. Her pride wounded. This human, she said slowly, her red eyes glowing. He fights with courage, creativity, and unpredictability. I will not forget him. I will find him, and I will end him. Her officers exchanged worried looks. None had ever seen her like this. Fear, though small, crept into her voice. On the Valora, Aaron stood quietly on the observation deck. The nebula's strange colors reflected in his eyes. He had won, yes, but the war was far from over. Lyra approached him. Do you think she will come back? Aaron nodded. Yes, and when she does, we'll be ready. But remember this, humans do not fight because it is easy. We fight because we cannot accept defeat. That is what makes us dangerous. Thren placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. Then it is good that you are with us. Aaron smiled faintly. No, it is good that we are together. Victory is not mine. It is ours. The legend of the human commander began to spread across the galaxy. Stories of bravery, strategy, and courage reached colonies hiding from the Dominion. Species that had lost hope began to whisper, perhaps we are not beaten yet. Perhaps there is a human among us. And in the shadows, Warlord Zera prepared. She would return, stronger than ever, determined to destroy the human who had shattered her empire. But for now, the Vareth Alliance had tasted victory. And they had learned the most important lesson of all. The galaxy could not predict a human, and that unpredictability was power. End of Part 4. Next, Part 5. The Legend of Humanity, where the final battle decides the fate of the galaxy and humanity becomes a symbol of courage. The galaxy had never known such tension. After the recent victories led by Captain Aaron Holt, the Dominion forces were scattered but still strong. Commander Zera had spent months rebuilding her fleet, and this time, she intended to destroy the human who had humiliated her, and the Vareth Alliance along with him. The final confrontation would decide the fate of countless worlds. Aboard the flagship Valora, Aaron walked silently through the corridors. Every soldier, pilot, and officer was preparing for what they called the last stand. Lyra met him at the command deck. Captain, the Dominion has amassed a fleet 10 times the size of ours, she said. Are we ready? Aaron's gaze was calm, but his mind worked quickly, calculating every possibility. We're ready because we have something they don't, he said. We have unpredictability, we have courage, and we have unity. Thren entered beside them. Then we fight together, Captain. Aaron nodded. Yes, every race, every ship, every soldier. We fight together. That is why we will win. The Dominion fleet appeared first, their ships forming a vast wall across the stars. Zera's flagship was at the center, massive and black with weapons glowing ominously. Her voice rang across the comms, cold and commanding. This human has led you this far, she said. Now you will die. Surrender or be destroyed. Aaron's voice answered calmly. We do not surrender. We fight. The Vareth fleet braced for battle. Ships shivered as their shields hummed with energy. Fighters revved their engines, ready to launch. Aaron's plan was bold, risky, and uniquely human. He divided the Vareth fleet into 3 groups. The first would engage the Dominion head-on, acting as bait. The second would circle around, attacking from unexpected angles. And the third, Aaron himself leading it, would strike directly at Zera's flagship. This is not a battle of numbers, he told Thren and Lyra. It's a battle of decisions. One wrong move for her, and the galaxy changes forever. Lyra shivered. It's incredible how calm you are. Aaron smiled faintly. Calm doesn't mean fearless. It means knowing that fear is part of the plan. The battle began. The first group of Vareth ships moved forward, opening fire. The Dominion responded with volleys of plasma beams, destroying several vessels. But the Vareth fleet held steady. Their purpose was not to win yet, but to control the battlefield. Fighters darted between explosions, striking at weak points in Dominion armor. Aaron's second group circled the enemy, hitting shields and communications, creating chaos in the Dominion ranks. Zera's officers panicked. The humans? They move like they are everywhere. Aaron piloted the third group, weaving through the chaos with precision. His ship cut through the battlefield like a spear. He dodged missile swarms and energy bursts, all while guiding his pilots to strike critical points. The tide of the battle shifted slowly. The Dominion, used to overwhelming their enemies with brute force, could not comprehend the human-led tactics. Each Vareth strike was unpredictable. Each attack seemed to come from where no one expected. Aaron shouted over the comms, "Push forward! Target their engines! Disable their weapons! Keep moving!" Every ship followed his orders flawlessly, trusting him completely. What the Dominion could not see was the human instinct behind each move: intuition, courage, and the willingness to risk everything. As the battle raged, Zera realized that her flagship was now vulnerable. The Vareth fleet had maneuvered perfectly, surrounding her ship from all sides. She ordered a final desperate attack. Massive energy beams fired at Aaron's position, each one more dangerous than the last. Aaron adjusted his course, dodging each beam while coordinating a precise counterstrike. He aimed at the main energy cores of Zera's flagship, the heart of her war machine. "Fire on my mark," he commanded. The Vareth fleet obeyed. Plasma torpedoes, missiles, and energy blasts converged on the Dominion flagship simultaneously. The concentrated fire hit the energy cores and the massive ship shuddered violently. Explosions erupted from inside. Zera's voice, now panicked, barked orders, but it was too late. Her flagship spun out of control and veered toward a nearby star, its systems failing. With the flagship disabled, the Dominion fleet lost coordination. Panic spread among their ranks. Smaller groups tried to escape, but the Vareth fleet, guided by Aaron, struck swiftly and decisively. One by one, enemy ships fell, disabled or destroyed. Lyra watched the battlefield unfold in awe. "He's doing the impossible again," Thren added quietly. "He doesn't just fight battles. He inspires everyone to fight like humans. That's the difference." Aaron, still at the heart of the fight, did not boast. He focused on guiding every maneuver, every attack, every escape route for his people. To him, the victory was shared, not personal. Hours passed. When the dust of battle finally settled, the Dominion fleet was shattered. Only a handful of ships remained, fleeing into the void. Zera's flagship had been destroyed in the star's gravity, and the Dominion's command structure lay in ruins. Across the galaxy, worlds that had suffered under the Karth Dominion's rule rejoiced. Messages of victory and freedom spread rapidly. Colonies once silenced began to speak again. Aaron stood on the Valora's deck, looking out at the stars now filled with glowing remnants of destroyed ships. His heart was heavy with the memory of lives lost, but he knew that hope had returned. Lyra approached him, tears shining in her eyes. "Captain, you've saved us all." Aaron shook his head. "No, we saved ourselves. I only showed you how to fight again." Thren placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. "You have changed everything, humanity. You have reminded us what courage truly is." Aaron finally smiled. "Then don't forget it. The galaxy will face threats again, but if humans are involved, hope will never die." News of the victory reached Earth. Humanity, a species once thought primitive by the galaxy, had become a symbol of courage, determination, and the power of hope. Children drew pictures of Aaron as a hero. Soldiers and pilots across countless planets whispered stories of the human who led an entire fleet to victory. Aaron did not stay for fame or titles. After ensuring that the Alliance was stable, he quietly returned to his small ship, disappearing into the stars. But the legend lived on. Across the galaxy, the words were repeated. They believed victory was theirs. Until we called upon a human. Humans became a symbol, not of invincibility but of spirit. A reminder that intelligence, courage, and the will to act could challenge even the strongest empires. On Vareth Prime, now being rebuilt, soldiers trained in the human style. Colonies joined forces with renewed unity. The galaxy had learned that one human could change the fate of many. And that hope, when led with courage, could inspire entire worlds. In the distant void, some Dominion survivors whispered of the human commander. Warlord Zera had been defeated, but her name remained a warning. And somewhere out there, humans were watching, waiting, ready to rise again if the galaxy needed them. Aaron's legacy was not just a series of victories. It was a lesson that courage, creativity, and determination were the greatest weapons of all. And so, the galaxy remembered the human. Not just as a soldier, not just as a commander, but as a legend. The story was told for generations. They believed victory was theirs. Until we called upon a human. And in every corner of the stars, that phrase became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the undeniable power of humanity.